Hi, it's Laura here, Yoga Love Collective. How are you guys doing? So this little video is about crow. Had some requests about crow, the arm balance. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes going over this fun arm balance. So grab yourself your yoga mat. I've got a bolster and a block handy. If you don't have a bolster, maybe some cushions. If you don't have a block, a couple of books. Yeah, be inventive, be creative at home. And then we'll come to the mat. Okay, so how we can use our props to practice this balance is by elevating the feet. You can use the cushions in front of you for a bit of a support if you're worried about falling on your face, okay? So the bolster or the cushions can be in front of you. If you're nervous about landing down on the floor with your face, it can also just be a little bit of support to rest your face on, okay? But I'll show you. And then the block can go underneath the feet so that we can also get a little bit of height. So a couple of questions about crow, where to put the knees. And in my experience, this has changed really throughout my practice. When I first started crow, when I first started to practice it, my knees would be quite wide. They'd be on the outside of my arms, and you want to have them above your elbows, because the minute the knees start to fall down beyond your elbow line, down into your forearm, your knees, your hips are probably going to be too low, and your weight's going to be too far down for your feet to come off the floor, okay? Or it's just going to be harder. So we want the knees to be above the elbow line. They can be on the outside, so see now that my knees are on the outside of my upper arms, and that's okay. If I show you from the front, they are on the outside of my upper arms. So when I first started this practice, when I started practicing this posture, they used to be about here, okay? And what this will allow you to do is to get confidence or to build your confidence whilst creating familiarity in the posture. So placing the hands wide, fingers spread out, so you're really using the whole of your hands for grounding. And then with the knees positioned, we start to lift the hips. And when we lift the hips, we can start to shift our weight. At this point, you want your elbows to bend and then to come back toward the center of your mat. So the elbows are pointing behind you, okay? So with the knees out to the side, you're going to stay relatively low. Your weight's going to stay relatively low. So when you start building your confidence, this is a good place to be, okay? And then with the bolster in front of you, perhaps, you can start to nudge it with the forehead, start to build some confidence, to lift the weight into the hands, and to come off your feet, okay? And if you're at that point where you're gaining a bit of air time, you're able to lift your feet off the floor, then I really want you to start thinking about bringing the knees a little bit further back behind your arms. And what that will do, if you see, the minute I do that, my hips lift higher. When I take my knees out a little bit wider, my hips are lower, all right? So the lower the hips, the less height you're going to gain in the posture, right? Okay, the higher your hips, the more height you're going to gain in the posture, all right? So, we'll have another go. So, don't be afraid to spend your time here, if you need to, with knees wide. If you're finding that you're getting a bit of air time, but you want to lift a little bit higher, then knees into the back of your upper arms. If I show you from the front, you'll see no knee, right? The knee comes directly into the back of the upper arm, so right into the center, okay? And again, we can use the bolster in front of us for a little bit of cushion if we land. You can always do that and get some practice lifting the feet, okay? This is how I want to keep doing, so take your time and rest. And advise that with anything, it's like anything in your practice, that you keep practicing, right? You keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And I say it so frequently, but say, for example, you go to one yoga class a week, the chances or the likelihood of your teacher doing that one posture in that class, okay, and you might spend maybe a minute or up to a minute or 10 seconds even in that posture. And if you're only visiting that posture for that period of time, once a week, and you're asking yourself, oh, I'm never getting better at this, I'm not improving, then you need to practice it more. If you're only visiting that posture potentially once a week for 10 seconds, you really need to spend more time practicing it. It's the hard reality, okay? It really is about consistency. It's like anything in your life. The more you do it, the more frequently you do it, the more consistently you do it, the better and the easier you're going to find it, okay? So I encourage you to keep practicing. Either the knees out, get used to building your confidence to take the weight into the hands, shifting forward, get used to little tiny baby hops, not hops, but baby rocks forward and rocks back. Then if you want to start to bring the knees into the back of the arms, same thing, a little shift forward of your weight and back. At that point, you're going to continue, okay? Another tip that could be really useful is to use a block and place it underneath your feet, all right? But when you do this, you're going to be higher, so you might feel a little bit more vulnerable because you are further away from the floor, okay? But what this will achieve is height in the hips, so that you can think about shifting your weight into the hands. Okay, so that can be a really nice thing. Now, I use the word hop, and that is an incorrect description really of what we're trying to do here. And I really want you to think about your transition of your weight from your feet into your hands as a rocking motion. So this block is your body, this part here is your head and your shoulders, and this part here at the back is your feet, right, and your hips. In order for you, so you start in this position, your head's up, your feet are down. In order for your feet to lift, you have to move your head and your shoulders down. You have to find that pivot at your hips, your belly, at your navel. So think of it more of a seesaw, a rocking forward, rather than anything else. What I see a lot of sometimes in students, when they're really super keen to get their feet off the ground, they sort of grasp at it and sort of try and fling their feet off the floor and sort of leap into the balance, right? I'll try and do a bad demonstration of like lifting the feet, desperately trying to catch some air time. But when we do that, all we're doing is bending the knees and trying to bring the feet up. We're not shifting our weight. So it's really important, it's really crucial that we think of that seesaw action in order for the hips, which are heavy, they're predominantly heavy in the body, yeah, the hips, the pelvis, the bones in the legs. We need to counterbalance that with the weight of the head and the shoulders. So I want you to think about this tipping seesaw motion forward. And there has to be a level of commitment to that. It can be scary because we're bringing our body weight forward, we're bringing our face forward toward the floor, and that's where your cushion might be welcomed. Okay, so I'll do a quick demonstration. So the minute you lift up your hips, all right, rather than this incessant lifting up of your feet and nothing else changes, I want you to think about your shoulder heads and the top of your skull moving slightly forward in order that you can lift your feet and shift your hips up. Yeah, so think of a seesaw action. Get used to that motion, okay? Make sure you take plenty of rest. Make sure you release your wrists if your wrists are sore. And I'm going to mention one more thing before I let you go. One more really useful tip is where you're looking. All right. So if you're familiar with your yoga practice, or you've been practicing for some time, I'm sure you would have heard your teacher talk about drishti, where you're looking, your gaze, right? Your reference point as to where you're looking. And it's no different here. Again, we can get so caught up in the desire to lift the feet up and come into a balance that we look down toward the floor, we look back toward our feet because we want to see them come off the ground. And what is that going to do? It's going to bring all of your weight into your skull, and your skull, your head, is going to fall down toward the ground. Okay? Again, I'll try and do a bad demonstration. So I'm looking back toward my feet because I want to see them come off the floor. And then if I try and bring my, I'm going to land on my head, right? And I'm going to come out of the posture. So what I want you to try and work on, in addition to everything else, okay, is to let your eyes reach out in front of you, right? So looking beyond your fingertips, looking toward the top of your mat. I don't want you to lift your head up so that you're creasing the back of your neck. That will never be good, all right? But I do want you to elongate your gaze, elongate where you're looking. So again, I'll demonstrate. Either your knees wide, if that's where you are, or knees into the back of your arms, if that's where you are. Shift the weight up into the hips, so lift your hips. Remember your seesaw action. And then I want you to look forward. So think about your chin protruding slightly forward. You're elongating the neck, the front of the neck, and you're looking beyond your fingertips. Think of that seesaw motion so that you can take the weight forward into the hands and let the feet lift. If you can catch some air time, think about the knees hugging in, the inner thighs squeezing, and the tips of the big toes moving together and up. Okay, so a couple of things for you to think about in your practice. Always move with patience and move with compassion. Move with a sense of play. It's really important that we're playful when we practice these types of movements in yoga, and keep practicing, keep practicing, keep practicing. And it may sound like an easy tool. I appreciate therein lies the essence of yoga, that we must keep on practicing. But I wish you all the love. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you real soon.